I want to start by asking you to think about someone you haven't forgiven. You don't need to say the name aloud. Just allow the face of that person, the memory of that person to surface. Let the feeling come up as well. And as the feeling is coming up, notice what is happening, what has just happened within your body. Your jaw may have tightened. Your chest may have closed. Your breathing may have accelerated. Something in you has just braced itself as if that person was standing in the room with you right now. They're not here with you. And yet, your body has reacted. And this is exactly where we are going to begin today. Forgiveness is one of the most talked about, written about, taught commonly. And yet, it's one of the most misunderstood acts in our human experience. Ever since we were young, our parents and then our moral science books in school kept repeating to us the lessons about forgiveness. And we've all heard these overdone cliches. Forgive and forget. Time will heal. Turn the other cheek. Let it go. Let it go? Is it as simple as switching on or switching off a fan? So today, instead of that question of how do I forgive, I would like this to be about the question, an honest question, without any shame. Why can I not forgive? Unless we understand the entire, let's say, architecture of this thing called forgiveness, we are going to keep blaming ourselves. We are all intelligent, emotionally aware, spiritually active people. And yet here we are, as has been proved as we started the talk, that there are certain people whom we can't forgive. We want to forgive. We try to forgive, and yet we can't. So let's start with an understanding of what forgiveness really is. Ever since we were young, we were made to believe that when we forgive, in a sense, what we are saying is It's okay. You did what you did. It's okay. Or we were given a pat on the back when we pretended that it didn't matter. We were always asked to welcome the person back into our lives. And as we grew up, we began asking ourselves, does forgiveness mean endorsing what the person has done or is doing to us? Does forgiveness mean giving that person the license to continue behaving in a certain manner? And that is, of course, what forgiveness is not. Because if that is what we are being asked to do, then naturally we can't forgive, right? It makes sense that we can't forgive if forgiveness means endorsing what that person has done. Forgiveness is actually not about the other person at all. It is about releasing yourself from the prison of pain. Whose pain? Your pain. The word forgiveness comes from an old English word, very old English, forgiven, which means to completely give back. It's important to understand, though, who are we giving back to? What are we giving back? The answer to the first question is we are giving back to ourselves. We are not giving back anything to another person. The act of forgiveness is about reclaiming ourselves. And what are we giving to ourselves? We are giving ourselves freedom, release from that prison of pain. Now, here you may disagree with me when I say that the cause of the pain lies within you and not outside of you. Because when someone says something or does something which causes us pain, we automatically assume that that person, therefore, is the cause of our pain. But we are, I believe, emotionally mature enough and spiritually aware enough to know that all our responses and reactions are determined by what lies within us. So the prison of pain that we are in may be, I admit, triggered by the other person, but it is not caused by the other person. And if you have to free yourself from the prison, you have to address not the temporary trigger, but you have to address the root cause that is within you. Unless and until we do that, we will not be able to bring ourselves to forgive. So that's the first cause of why we can't forgive. Because there is something within us that has taken away our peace of mind. And that lack of peace is triggered by someone or something. Many years ago, the cosmic masters had said that to forgive is an act of gratitude, because we are grateful to the other person, or rather we should be grateful to the other person for bringing us the awareness, for giving us the awareness that there is an inner root which they are triggering. So whatever way you look at it, whether you look at it spiritually, whether you look at it psychologically, emotionally, the truth remains the same, that the prison of pain is caused by something that lies within us. When there has been a wound of a pretty significant nature, of a pretty severe nature, and especially if that wound was caused to us in our childhood by someone we loved, by someone we depended upon, by someone we respected, then that wound does not only remain as a memory, it festers within. And with every passing year, that wound begins to define our identity. Now, this is an extremely crucial point to understand. We may have suffered the wound many years ago, but who we are today, our belief systems, our thought patterns, our reactions and responses, the way we judge, the way we speak, the way we may gossip about another, all of this has been determined by the identity that has been shaped due to that wound, which of course becomes the root cause. How will you know if something has defined you or defined your identity? Become aware of the words that you speak, or more importantly, the thoughts you think, because very often we don't voice what we think. Thoughts like, I am that person whose mother chose her addiction over me. I am that woman whose husband destroyed her trust. I am the man who was humiliated and no one was there to defend me. All of these are true stories. But there comes a time when these stories become who we are. And that is where the problem lies. Our entire psychology is created around that story. I know a lady who is today a cancer survivor. Good for her. But when she meets strangers, she will introduce herself with her name, and almost in the first minute or two will say something like, I am a cancer survivor. That event, traumatic though it must have been, we are not undermining her trauma in any way, is defining who she is today, even though the cancer plagued her about 15, 20 years ago. This is a very true story for her. It's an extremely real event. She has gone through that pain and the trauma, but her entire psychology now has been created around that traumatic experience. So the way we relate to people, the partners we choose, the friendships we choose, the experiences we endure and put up with, the risks we take or don't take, all of this is built around that traumatic event, that wound, that root cause that we may have not yet identified within us. So when we approach forgiveness, we have to first consider releasing ourselves from that story, because that story comes up as soon as there is a trigger. Someone has said something or done something, that story comes up and rings an alarm bell, which makes us reactive. We have to sit with ourselves or take help of a psychologist, a therapist, a confidant, a spiritual mentor, and be ready to go deep within ourselves to uncover that hidden trigger. Lack of forgiveness or unforgiveness is not about being stubborn. I have heard people say that. Why are you being so stubborn? Just let it go. I have been told that statement. It's not about stubbornness. Unforgiveness and the inability to forgive is actually an identity crisis. To leave a part of my identity that I have built up around a certain event. To leave our identity or even part of our identity is no easy task. We have to be ready to be defined by something new. We have to be ready to acknowledge that here is a story I'm holding on to, but I can allow a new story to now redefine me. And that process is not as easy as saying 1, 2, 3. Once I've defined the story, once I have recognized the story, once I have recognized that I am defining myself with that story, why can't I still let it go easily? That brings us to the third point. There are two strong emotions attached to that story. The most apparent one, the most obvious one, is anger. But there is another layer, another emotion below the anger. But let's talk about the anger first. Why do we hold on to that anger? When I was going through this process, I cannot tell you how many rituals and meditations and healings that I did to release the anger. It didn't budge. Anger keeps us attached to the person. I'm going to say this again so that you take it in. Anger keeps us attached to that person. Understand that when someone causes us deep pain, we may even convince ourselves to believe that we hate that person. But the truth is, if you truly hated that person, your inner pain wouldn't be triggered. What can trigger your inner pain is something that is done by someone who means a lot to you. You may convince yourself to kingdom come that that is not true, that you don't actually care about the person. But in fact, it is true. So the first step here should be, if you do not know that you care so much about the person, or if you've convinced yourself to believe that you don't care about that person, then I ask you to please sit with yourself and acknowledge the truth. And here's another cliche, because that truth shall set you free. Acknowledge that that person means a lot to you. Let old memories of togetherness come up. The reason why you are angry with that person is because you want to stay connected to that person. You want to stay attached to that person. You are finding it difficult to let go of that person. And it doesn't mean that that person has to be alive, because we can stay attached and be connected to a person who has passed on. Why do you want to remain connected to that person? A, of course, because that person means something to you. But B, that anger keeps bringing us back to that person. Every time we think about that person, yes, we think about that person in anger, what we are doing is reinforcing the connection. Every time we talk about that person in derogatory terms, most probably, what we are doing is reinforcing the connection. We don't want to let them go. We are energetically still in that relationship, in that connection. So that brings us to the next question. Why do we not want to let it go? Because the anger is not only keeping the bond alive, the anger is covering up another emotion that is far deeper, far more intense, and far stronger, and definitely more painful than anger is. And that emotion is grief. What you are really holding on to is the grief of the moment, the grief of the story, the grief of the trauma, the grief of the disappointment, the grief of the betrayal. Anger is often easier to bear than grief. Anger is easier to address than grief. Grief can be so painful sometimes that it brings with it a whole slew of other emotions, brings with it sometimes hopelessness, brings with it sometimes despair, brings with it sometimes helplessness, that we will do anything in our power not to truly address the grief. And so, in order to hide from the grief, to escape from the grief, we use anger to mask it. So, anger is serving two purposes. It's keeping that bond alive, and it's keeping us away from the truth of the grief that we are going through. We will have to address this grief. We will have to recognize it. We will have to acknowledge how emotionally broken we were by an event, by a situation. Because unless we do that, unless we grieve, we can't let go. Isn't that why we encourage a person who has lost a dear one to grieve? Because you and I know already how important that process of grief is. Till we have allowed ourselves to grieve completely, and maybe I will speak about grief in a future talk, to feel that grief completely, we will continue to need the anger. And that anger shall continue to keep us energetically in that relationship, in that connection. Anger and grief are also sometimes caught with another kind of identity crisis. And this is a rather strange one, but not uncommon. In my sessions with my clients over the years, I have realized that very often clients don't want to let go of the grief and the anger because somewhere in their deep subconscious is that belief of, if I address the anger, if I address the grief, if I heal those two emotions, I will be forced to let go of the relationship. Even though, in fact, no relationship exists, but in their deep unconsciousness, that relationship does exist. You see, every time you talk about that person with anger, every time you think about that person, every time you say something to yourself about that person or that event, your body understands erroneously, but your body understands that this event is still going on. Your body understands that this person is still very much here and now with you. And that is not the truth. But your body doesn't know that. Your intellect knows it. Your body still doesn't know it. Your body has not caught up with your intellect. So if you have to truly forgive, you will have to come to a stage where your body knows this is over. There is no person like I'm thinking. There is no event. That event happened. It's done. The relationship is over. The connection is over. I have to move on. Your body has to catch up with that truth. Which brings us to the fourth point. The culture we live in has made us believe that our bodies are for beauty purposes, to attract, to charm. We don't give our bodies the due that they are meant to receive. We must understand that every thought, every word, every emotion that is experienced by our intellect, by our mind, by our heart, by our emotional body, is also experienced just as strongly as the body. The body is experiencing them just as strongly. And the body is the last to catch up. The intellect leads the way. So the intellect tells us this person is not here anymore. This happened in 20 years ago. The intellect knows it all. The body is not catching up. Why? Because every time you think, every time you speak, and every time you are feeling something about that person, about that situation, your body is believing this is still going on. Your body does not know that it is not happening anymore. And this may surprise you. Each time you remember the trauma, each time you talk about the trauma, your body is reliving it. So you may believe this was in the past. Your intellect knows it was in the past. Your body is reliving it in the here and the now. So how can it let it go? How can you be healed when your body is going through the trauma process here and now? Which brings us to the fifth point. Because the body is reliving it in the here and now, what the body is waiting for is an apology, is some kind of affirmation of understanding of your pain by the other person. If the other person says, hey, I'm sorry, I know I did this to you and I caused you a whole lot of pain, the body would be released from that situation quicker. Maybe. So at some level of consciousness, you are waiting for that apology. You are waiting for that person to tell you they understand that they have caused you hurt and pain. You are waiting for that person to take responsibility for their actions. The truth is, many times that apology, that act of taking responsibility, those words of understanding do not come. And the more they don't come, the greater is the grief. And as the grief rises, the anger deepens. The anger deepens and the bond, energetic bond, becomes stronger. Forgiveness moves even further away. But think of it in one way. All this while, this person or this event has been responsible for a lot of pain in your life. Whether as a trigger or not, it has still been responsible. Yes, we know that the true cause of pain is within you, but that person and that event has definitely been a huge trigger. There's no going away from that truth, which means you have already parted with some aspect of your inner power and given it away to that person. Now you are waiting for that apology, for those words of understanding, for that act of self-responsibility. Do you not see that what you are doing is parting with even more of your energies and giving even more of your energies to a person who in the first place did not respect your energy? So when one sits back and looks at this in the right perspective, you begin to ask yourself the question, do I really want to do that? Do I want to keep giving away my energies to this person who has made it very clear, does not respect my energies at all? If you are waiting, and if your peace is conditional on the behavior of someone who, let us say, is dead, or who is never going to give you that apology, or who trivializes your pain, who disrespects you, if your peace is conditional on the behavior of that person, you are going to be left with no peace at all. And in the long run, who is suffering because of that? It is you. Your body will very soon start being diseased, start getting sick physically, because there is only that much of lack of peace that the human body can take and hold on to. At some point, the burden becomes so strong that it collapses. That niggling pain that is never going away, that acidity that you just can't cure, that stomach ailment that seems to have plagued you for years, that migraine that keeps coming on and on and on, could be due to the fact that you have not completed the process of forgiveness. Because forgiveness is that moment when you take back control of your life, when you stop waiting for them to make it right, when you decide that you are going to be the only one responsible to make yourself whole and healthy again. Which brings us to the last point. Yes, you are angry with someone else. Yes, you are angry at a situation. And yes, of course, there is grief beneath that anger. there is one more person you are even more angry with, and that person is yourself. You are angry with yourself for staying on too long. You're angry with yourself for not seeing it sooner. You're angry with yourself for loving someone who is not capable of loving you back. You are angry with yourself for not having protected yourself enough. You're angry with yourself for having gone through a certain situation which you could have avoided. We find so many reasons to be angry with ourselves. And the hardest forgiveness is forgiveness of ourselves. This is not because you did something wrong. This is not because you are the person to blame. It is because you are an imperfect human being like we all are. And because we are all imperfect human beings, we don't see it sooner. We don't realize it then. We do make mistakes. We do love those who may not deserve our love. Yes, and we get hurt because of that. That is because we are human. So don't call yourself stupid because of that, because every time you call yourself stupid, the lack of forgiveness for yourself is getting even stronger. Naturally, you are going to ask me this question: how do I change all of this? I'm going to ask you one question in reply to that. Supposing a young child came up to you and said, "Hey, I love someone, and that person has really hurt me very deeply. And I keep hoping that they will change, and they keep hurting me." What will you tell that child? Will you tell that child that you're stupid? What will you tell that child? What will you do? Will you not hold that child? Will you not embrace that child? Will you not speak words of truth from deep within your heart to that child? That's the first step you have to take. You have to do that, you have to say that, and you have to be that with your inner child. And then once you have done that, the ancient Hawaiian practice of hooponopono is what I strongly recommend. Pono in Hawaiian means the state of completion, the state of perfection, the state of harmony, the state of integrity. This state of harmony, of integrity, of perfection is a state that exists between you and life, not between you and someone else. And so once you have embraced yourself, once you have gently spoken to your inner child, start with the Ho'oponopono statements. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Remember, you are harmonizing the state of existence, the state of energy, of integrity, of spirit between you and life. That other person does not enter the equation. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I have done so many courses on Ho'oponopono, and I know I shall continue to do them, because I truly believe that this is that one healing modality that can truly take us back to ourselves. So the next time I do this course, and if you still haven't done it with me, please register and do it with me. But for the present, embrace your inner child. Talk to it with love. Tell your inner child it's okay. It's okay to want someone else to apologize. It's okay to be imperfect. We are all human beings. And then just keep repeating, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. Say it inwardly. Say it to that part of you that is still waiting. Say it to that part of you that is still hoping. Say it to that part of you that is still hurting. A continued daily practice of hooponopono shall be able to take you through all these 6 points that we have discussed. And yes, this may happen slowly. It happened slowly for me. But the joy is, I freed myself from that prison. And I pray for that release for you as well.